Greetings, SAT fans. All right, so this is worksheet 4. So let's get started. Number 3, if x is greater than 6 times x minus 5 in quantity, then which of the following must be true? So we got to distribute that 6. So we're going to basically just say x is greater than 6x minus 30. And then I'm going to subtract 6x from both sides. So you get negative 5x greater than negative 30. Now this is important. It's very, very important. When you have an inequality, if you divide by a negative, it's very important. If you divide by negative, you flip that inequality sign around. You should know that. So x is now less than 6. Okay, so the answer is C. Pretty easy, but you got to remember that. That's super important, is to flip that baby around. Okay? All right, so kind of the same thing, except it's a little bit different because it's a compound inequality. And as opposed to me writing it out, because again, you're trying to save a little bit of time. So I know that the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually add 3 to all 3 sides. So if I add 3 to that, negative 13 plus 3 is negative 10, less than or equal to negative 2z, less than or equal to 4. Okay. Now this is a little tricky too, because again, I have a negative here. I'm going to be dividing everything by negative 2. Okay, so technically you got to flip those inequality signs around. So it's going to be 5 greater than or equal to z greater than or equal to negative 2. All right, it's never written this way because you never have the biggest numbers over on this side and the smallest numbers on this side. So I got to take that whole thing and flip it over, just like a number line, right? The number line, you always have the negative 2 here and the 5 here. So that means it's got to flip over, but everything has to flip. Okay, so you wind up getting negative 2 less than or equal to z less than or equal to 5. Okay, and the way you kind of recognize that, math fans, is see how it's pointing to the negative 2 here? Well, when you flip it, it better be pointing to that negative 2 as well. Same thing, it's pointing on this side, pointing to the z, better be pointing to that z. Okay, so then your final answer is this right here, which of course is B. Okay, it's not bad. Okay, let's keep going here. Number 5. All right, so same thing. I'm going to move the s's to the left and the numbers to the right. So just on top, again, I'm not going to rewrite this. I'm going to add 14 to both sides, and I'm going to subtract 6s from both sides. The minimum amount I write, without getting confused, the better off I am. The less you write, the faster you work, the more efficient you are. Hopefully you have more time to answer more questions, okay? So if I add 14, well, let's actually subtract the 6s, right? 7s minus 6s is 1s, so s equals, or actually, sorry, it's less than or equal to. And then I added 14, so 14 plus 4 is 18. And that's all you have to do. This one's actually pretty easy. You don't really have to do a lot here because you're already got a positive 1s, nothing to do. So s is less than or equal to 18. Okay? This next one, so my recommendation is for this problem is to flip it around. If you have the variable on, only the variable on the right hand side, your answer is never going to look like this. It's never going to look like 5 is greater than C. That just won't happen. It's always going to be C is less than 5. So C is always on that left hand side. So my recommendation is move everything over. So negative 16 minus 3C, and see how it's pointing to the 8? Well, rewrite it so it's pointing to the 8. So I haven't done anything to the problem, literally just flipped it over and make sure the inequality is still pointing in the correct direction. And now I can solve for C, just a little bit easier. So I'm going to add 16 to both sides. So I get negative 3C is greater than 24. And then if divide by negative 3, C, of course, you flip the inequality sign when you divide by negative. So C is less than negative 8, okay, which is D. Now, real quickly, just a comment. If you have, let's say, 3C is less than negative 9, for example, just because there's a negative there, don't flip it. Okay, it's only when you divide by a negative or multiply by a negative. So if I divide by 3, this is positive here. So it'll be C is less than negative 3. Okay, so that's our 4 questions. Adios, math fans. Goodbye.